Hi, I'm Jamie Miller, a registered SQF consultant and food safety consultant with Kellerman Consulting, and you are watching our video series on allergen risks and controls in food facilities. In this series, we are going to focus on some of the difficult issues many facilities face when employing allergen controls in food and food packaging facilities. We will focus on solutions for controlling allergens and maintaining a sustainable and effective mitigation strategy. As part of our review, we are going to cover some basic background information about allergens, as well as some standard criteria used to determine how large of an allergen program is appropriate for a facility. Once we look at the varying risks allergens pose, we will explore operational strategies for identifying, organizing, and monitoring allergens to assure a facility can demonstrate compliance during regulatory inspection or certification audits. So let's begin with determining the risks allergens pose in a facility. To determine the risk of allergens in a facility, we must first identify whether or not there are exposed foods processed in the facility, and also identify if there are any allergens in the exposed foods. For a storage and distribution facility that does not handle exposed food, and for food packaging facilities, there is a low risk of allergens in the facility. Next, in terms of risks, are facilities that process foods, and all foods processed contain no allergens. An example could include a produce distributor that cuts and bags greens, a beverage company, or a meat or poultry processor. Facilities that do not process food with allergens in them have a minimal risk of allergens from the food being processed, but there's always a risk of allergens getting into the food by mistake from supplier error or employee hygiene issues. Lastly, we have facilities that process foods with allergens in them. For these facilities, allergens are always going to be a high risk. A special case of allergen risk would be a facility that processes the same allergen in all of the food they process as we would find in a nut processor, a dairy, or a bakery. For these facilities, allergens are present in all operations, but since it is uniform, there is often a desire to treat the allergen as low risk as it is always present. The special risk here comes where a culture develops in the facility of dismissing allergens as a risk and becoming complacent to the risks posed where formulas change or new products are added. For example, we may have an established product and add a new allergen to the product. Here we can think of sesame seeds added to a finished product, or an egg dip in a bakery. It is the experience of Kellerman Consulting that these types of facilities should incorporate strong allergen controls into the facility's culture of safety and not treat themselves as exempt from allergen controls, since this sends a confusing message to employees and makes allergen training difficult. Regardless of what risk level a facility determines for allergens, all facilities have allergens in them unless a written policy restricting 100% of allergenic foods from entering the facility is part of the food safety program. That would include candy bars or peanut butter and jelly for employee lunches. As part of an allergen assessment, it is assumed most or all allergens are present in employee meals and snacks. Soy, peanuts, and tree nuts may also be present in employee lotions or in operational chemicals used for lubrication, maintenance, or cleaning. Allergen considerations and hazards are not restricted to the foods produced in the facility. At a minimum, a signed statement by leadership and the food safety team stating whether or not the facility has allergens on site in food they handle and whether or not those allergens are exposed should be present and available for review during audits and inspections. The statement should also include information on what allergen controls are required in the facility and how those allergen risks are controlled. Since all facilities have allergens, this statement should start with employees washing their hands and checking their clothes after eating each shift. Our video series on how to write a risk assessment and the free templates on our website for risk assessments may also be useful for facilities looking to create a more robust allergen statement and we highly recommend taking the approach of creating an allergen risk assessment for a food facility. We will cover mitigation strategies for these sources of allergen contamination in the facility in a later episode, but for now we will emphasize that all food facilities have some allergen risk and all facilities are required to have at least a written statement about current allergen risks regardless of the allergen risk level. Treating allergens as a risk in the facility is not the same thing as admitting people will get sick from eating the products of the facility. Instead, creating a basic statement identifying the complexity of allergen controls in the facility is a way to stay up to date and on top of the current state of allergens in operations and allows an easy-to-assess program during management review or audit of the food safety system. In our next episode, we are going to look at how allergens are controlled in a food facility and how to properly train employees on allergen controls. Thank you for watching. For more food safety training videos and resources, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel or follow us on LinkedIn.